I became involved with the Poughkeepsie tapes because I'm married to John, who's the writer director. Um, so at first I was just kind of helping out with auditions. So I'm an actress, but there wasn't really a good part for me. There's the Samantha Robeson played the character of Sam, and that would have been a pretty good part for me. But I auditioned for that, and I was just bad at it. I don't know for some reason, and she was so good at it, you know. And so there wasn't really anything else for me. Um, but John and Drew were using me to read against the actors who were coming in to play Ed, the serial killer. And I would get super into it, and I would just cry and cry, you know. Um, and I started to really enjoy it, and I started to secretly think, like, maybe I could steal this part, you know, like maybe I'll be so good that they'll want to cast me. And so I kind of secretly had my fingers crossed, but I didn't, I didn't ask for it. I didn't like, I just let them do their thing. But then they started bringing in people to audition for the Cheryl Dempsey part, and they weren't so good. You know, they were kind of, I think, a couple of them were good. I shouldn't, say that, but I think they were kind of, thought they were slumming it. Like some people straight up wouldn't audition for it. Like, we're just offended. Like, no, I'm not going to do your creepy semi-porn. No. So anyway, yeah. So I kind of swept in and stole it. I met John at a party. This is like the story of how we met because we're married. So yeah, well, so we met at a party. I had just moved to LA, and I was dancing around because when I'm nervous I dance and I sing to myself. So he saw me across the party and he said to his buddy George, who I think helped produce Poughkeepsie tapes. He said, "You see that girl? I could be happy with that girl for the rest of my life." But he came up and we just like shook hands, but that was it. I didn't remember him, and he left. And he like chickened out. He didn't like get my number or anything. But he called his friend who threw the party. He said, "If you ever have another party, invite that girl and invite me." And he did. So 6 months later, there was another party. We flirted a little bit. So when John and I started dating, he was just finishing up a movie called The Dry Spell, which was the first thing he did with his brother. That was back when Drew was still an investment banker living in New York. And would come out to LA, but wasn't like a full timer yet. I think Poughkeepsie Tapes is the first time Drew became a full timer with John. So anyway, John had finished. He was finishing editing The Dry Spell, and he gave me a copy on VHS because we're like 112 years old. So he gave He gave me a VHS, and I remember going like, "Please God, please be good. I really like this guy. Don't be a terrible movie." So I put it in, and it was really good. I mean, it was cheap. It cost like $8, but it was good. It was funny and colorful and interesting. And I thought, sweet, he can direct. This is great. Yeah, and then so we started dating, got married, and then it was actually, I think, he was actually writing the Poughkeepsie tapes when we were engaged. And then we got married. And I think he actually said to me, Drew, said like, "Hey, should we just give Stacy the part of Cheryl? She can do it." So it was actually, I think, on our honeymoon that he said, "You want to play Cheryl?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to play Cheryl. Yeah." This was it's like a wedding present.
Feelings.
What do you mean?
Like feelings like something's gonna happen or something.
Sometimes. Why?
It's weird. Everything's been so good lately. Like everybody seems pretty happy and everything's just like too good.
Well, the background of the character, I mean, this is like a very cool, rare instance of the characters being created right before my eyes. So John and I brainstorm together all the time. I'm a writer, he's a writer, so we're always kicking around ideas and having fun. So I got to see the character, I got to hear all about it. She should be like this. Oh no, she's like this. I was living with him. I got to see it happen. I got to throw in my 2 cents. Although I don't really remember adding anything that he used. I think he saw it pretty clearly. The fun thing was, again, because, we're married and we live together, it wasn't like there was like I got a script and then I memorized it in a day and then I had 2 days of rehearsal. It wasn't like that. Like as they were putting together the financing, as they were working on the script, when I had the character, when I had been cast, I could just sort of play with it and ask questions. And like I remember one time John came into our bedroom and I was practicing hog tying myself, right? Because I thought, well, this is going to be difficult. So I'm really flexible. So I was doing this weird thing where I had myself like hog-tied with scarf. I don't even know how I did it in retrospect, but him walking in like, whoa, going right back out.
What's happening? Where am I? Stay away from me! Stay away! Why are you doing this? Please don't hurt me! Please don't hurt me! I'll do whatever you want! I know you will. Shut up!
So playing a torture victim was rough, but in a good way. Do you know what I mean? Like if you like running marathons, you want to run and you want your heart to beat fast and you want to sweat and you want it to be like engaging and tough. So it's the same with acting, I think. Like I'm not good at, being an ingenue or looking pretty. I can't cry pretty tears at all. But once I knew that John and Drew wanted to go for that like snotty, like extreme aesthetic where I didn't have to hold back, where it was actually like, no, really just go dark. Then I was super excited because I like to do that stuff. I like to do extreme characters. And for me, this is the biggest part I've ever had, before or since. So it was just great getting somebody so meaty. And I really looked at Cheryl, for that part, as more of a drama. What she goes through, it's in a horror movie, but what she goes through is very dramatic and very sad. So yeah, I just looked at it like that. So physically it was a little taxing. Like I would definitely go home and like guzzle my white wine, like, just exhausted. But I wanted to be exhausted. It's like you see those people on CSI or something, people where their whole career is going like, your wife is online too. That's exhausting, to just do something so boring, but to actually get to cry and freak out and be dragged around is fun. My goal with the acting was just to make it seem real. And if that meant that I had to mumble or like downplay things or real was kind of my number one priority. And I think when I act normally, I think maybe I have a tendency to over-articulate things, to be like, I'm going to play this beat, and then I'm going to play this beat. It was kind of fun not getting to do that, sort of having to just muffle all those articulations and just to be a little more real. It's fun. You're the master. Please serve me. Please serve me. You are the master. Please, yes. One of the great things about John writing and putting together financing on this while we were living together is that I got to use his research. We'd just be talking about, we're drinking our morning coffee, talking about serial killers. We actually just KonMari'd our house. KonMari, that thing where you declutter everything. I think John gave away like 800 serial killer books. I'm sure the local Goodwill was like, what the hell? But my favorite book, or my favorite real story to learn about was Gary Heidnik. He was a serial rapist and kidnapper and killer. He only killed, I think, a couple of people. He mostly liked to kidnap people and keep them in his basement and rape them. And he was a sadist. He would pit them against each other. He would feed them dog food sandwiches and just all this weird stuff. He seemed like he was into games. And Ed, the killer in our movie, is into games. It was just a really good parallel. And then, Ed at some point uses Cheryl, my character, to go out and recruit other women, and Gary Heidnik did the same thing. So that was helpful because there are a lot of books about killers, but for me, for my plot line, he didn't kill me. It was about being a sex slave. It's about being a sex slave. It was such a fun movie to do. So John and Drew, they can't say this about themselves, but they're like notoriously nice. Like everyone who works with them just thinks they're so nice. They're so funny. They got that Minnesota like, no offense. Like they've got that sort of goofy like do. And they're brothers. They're always teasing each other. So, and I'm, pretty laughy. So it made for a very nice atmosphere. And then so many people working on the film were good friends. Like their DP, Sean Dufresne, was an old friend, and the production designer, Althea Root, was an old friend, and they eventually got married, and Ben Messmer, who plays Ed, is such a hilarious, weird guy. And just everybody was really smart and funny, and the nice thing was everybody was taking it very seriously. Like they were showing up, doing the work, taking it seriously that way, but then, when John would yell, cut, then it's all joking around. Nobody was method. I know, God bless them, but those method actors, what a drag. Just moping around all day, like, no thanks.
Hey guys, come here.
Come on. Whoa. Get in here, Sean. Get over here. Over here. You ready? Go! Whoa. Oh my God.
Is she alive?
Oh my God, she is. We need a medic in here. Get a medic in here now!
Being hogtied was really difficult because it put weird pressure on my throat. I ended up having that weird voice. I was nervous at first that made me seem foolish. Not in a good way, but like I'd make the audience laugh. Like, she sounds like such a weirdo. So that was a little difficult. So the water, the thing where he's sticking me in water. I mean, it's really, like I said, we didn't have any stunt people. We didn't have any. It's a very inexpensive movie. So he really just stuck my head in water, swished it around while I held my breath, and then I'd go, like that's how we did that stunt, was he just stuck my head in water. So that was kind of difficult. But again, I liked it. And that was the first time, I think that was the first scene that I shot, at least. And it was pretty cool because it was almost like announcing to everybody, like, okay, everybody, we're going to really go for it. We're going to be screaming and really crying, and it's going to be a hot mess, but we're really doing this, okay? So we did that scene, and you sort of felt like the crew go like, oh, shit. Like, they're, this is going to be dramatic. So that was a good feeling. And then, so when we were at Tribeca at the film festival, which is where we premiered and where we sold the movie to MGM, it was great. Tribeca was great. We did a Q&A afterward in front of the big theater, and this woman, she seemed pretty educated. She was like, "Now, what are the comparisons to waterboarding? We noticed when she dunks your head, it's a lot like waterboarding." And we were all like, "What's waterboarding?" Like we didn't know. Is that in the newspapers? I don't read the newspapers.
What?
How do you kill my parents?
Say it again!
How do you kill my parents?
You don't have parents. You're a slave. Those people. Why? Why?
Because I don't like them.
And then I was really happy with that final scene, the interview, which is pretty cool that I might be the only character I might be the only character where you see me in the videos as somebody who's been stalked and caught, but you also see me in an interview. I'm trying to remember Blair Chandler, who does the voice, the 911 call. You hear her, but I might be the only person you actually see. Anyway, that was cool, and I was really excited about it. And like I said, John and I had just gotten married, and a girl that I used to babysit when I lived in New York City, this really wonderful girl, Juliet, she came out to be our flower girl for the wedding. And she was so shy to be around me because we hadn't seen each other in 2 years. And she just whispered. Like I'd say, Juliet, how are you? And she'd be like, I'm fine, everything's fine. Like a complete whisper. And I remember going like, that's good. That is so good, because in movies you're not allowed to whisper. And I thought, I'm gonna whisper as quiet as I can of just somebody who's like that shy little girl who's like, holy shit, I've been in a basement for 8 years and now there's lights and camera people and I'm just completely overwhelmed. So I thought that was a good choice. I thought that was fun. And I remember the sound guy I was like, I'm gonna whisper, okay? He's like, sure. And I did, and he's like, you're not gonna whisper that quiet, are you? I'm like, if I can't. So we kind of split the difference so I could get as quiet as I could. But then there was the other fun choice I thought where I asked John, I said, hey, could you give me a French braid? Because we were trying to imply that the relationship between Cheryl and her mom was not great. Because in the Hollywood version, Cheryl's mom would be so sweet and so loving and want her back, and Cheryl would come back and be this wonderful reunion. But we thought, wouldn't it be kind of sweet if maybe it wasn't so good? So we tried to imply that her mom and she didn't quite get along, and I thought, could you give me a French braid, which is something that somebody with one hand couldn't do. So just to suggest that her mom is braiding her hair and putting her in these weird church clothes, that everything is, obviously she's better off now that she's out of the basement, but it's not like where she's landed is so great.
That's awesome.
I don't know. I don't think that I wouldn't do this anymore.
Why?
Because I don't know what you want me to say.
You can say anything you want.
He loved me. Nobody ever lets me say it, but it's true. He loved me. And he didn't mean to leave me. And someday he's gonna come back to me. And he's gonna take me away.
As the movie evolved, when we were first shooting it and first putting it together, the goal was to make it seem as real as possible so that people watching it, when they left the theater, one person would be going, that is completely real. And the other person would be going like, no, it's not. Are you an idiot? Like, we wanted to make that a question, So John actually created all these websites about serial killers, and then he stuck Ed in all of them so that if somebody went, it was 12 years ago, it was a lot more innocent of a time, you figure if it's online, if you've got like 8 websites that say a guy's a serial killer, he's probably a serial killer, So John created all these websites, which was really fun, and the goal was just to get people engaged, and it seemed to be working really well, like John and Drew say, when it felt like a secret. Like when people had heard about this, or Tribeca felt so good because people weren't sure if it was real or not real, and we were kind of underdogs because it was a horror movie, but then it ended up being this big sale, and it was kind of the hit of Tribeca that year. And the guys signed with an agent, and they got quarantined, and then we weren't really underdogs anymore. And then MGM was going to release it in thousands of theaters, and the movie went to Button-Omathon, which was a disaster. And now we weren't the underdogs anymore with this cool secret. Now it was them like, who do you think you are? We're way too smart for you to pull this, like, this is real. But by then we'd given up on the idea of saying the movie was real. We just wanted to like spark that conversation, if that makes sense. Anyway, so then John finished shooting Quarantine, and we went to Paris for like a little vacation, which I know sounds super fa-fa, but we were like, we did it, we're making it, yeah! I hired a publicist, it was gonna be so exciting. And then John got a call from a reporter saying, hey, is it true that MGM is pulling the movie and they're not gonna release it? John was like, let me get back to you. So then he called his agent and found out that yes, indeed, they were pulling it I think like 2 weeks before it was supposed to be released. So that was so painful. And then we got the flu, and we were just throwing up in Paris. It was just a disaster. But anyway, it's gone like this. You know what I mean? I think if the movie had come out in 2,000 theaters, I think people would have crucified us. I think they would have just hated it just for the fun of hating it. And then it became this underground thing where you could only get it basically if you stole it, which is fun. You know, everybody likes stealing something. So then it becomes this cool cult thing of like, oh, I'm in the know. There's this movie that is real or not real, and I kind of stole it online. You know, although stealing is wrong. I should probably say that. But
there also was severe sexual torture, including things like electrocution of genitals and things that are too horrible to say out loud.
I think the best way to watch the movie is at home, by yourself, or with just one or two other people, and don't talk about it too much, just let it be its thing. I think it has a nice way of, it's kind of insidious. I think it has a nice way of creeping in on you and staying with you. And also, I think one of the interesting things about Poughkeepsie tapes, which no one really mentions, is all of these found footage movies, and there's so many of them, and there's so many good ones, they're all supernatural. I don't know why people want to take the format of it's totally believable filmmaking and mix it with a supernatural, it couldn't happen story. But that's how people usually do it. And I think it's very cool and surprising that it doesn't happen more. The John and Drew's movie is actually, it looks real and it's about stuff that really happens more than you think. I think that's very scary and cool.